What is up, guys, from sunny Miami Beach? Today we are doing things a little bit differently. You guys are used to seeing me share the historical facts about where I live, the beautiful Miami Beach in Miami. But today I will be behind the camera. I have a tour guide who has his own tour company, link in the description, and he has agreed to give us a personal tour just for you guys to watch. And I just spent 5 hours filming it. This is the intro, but I am done filming for the day. I'm very exhausted. It was a very long shoot for you guys to see, and I hope you guys enjoy. It's a very comprehensive, in-depth tour of South Beach.
Hi, my name is Damian, and I'm a tour host here in Miami Beach. So let me show you my city. Today we're gonna hop from venue to venue, gonna look at different lobbies, rooftops, look at the beach, talk a little bit about history, architecture, all sorts of interesting things. And trust me, history here is truly stranger than fiction. So let's go. Okay, so we're here at the top of Ocean Drive, Lummus Park here, full of coconuts. By the way, Miami Beach was, before Miami Beach was Miami Beach, it was a coconut plantation. And it was started by Henry Lum, New Jersey resident. He was sailing by, this was absolute wilderness, a sandbar, and he decided to try his farming at coconuts and planted thousands of coconuts. By the way, coconuts are not native to this part of the world. They're only native to tropical Asian countries. So they were all brought in and planted by man. Even Hawaii originally did not have coconuts. Over here, we have this big wide beach. You can't even see the ocean because it's being blocked by trees and bushes over there. But it hasn't always been this way. Had we stood here 50 years ago, pre-1978, we would be in the ocean because back then the shoreline were somewhere here behind you. Army Corps of Engineers expanded the beach between 78 and 82 by dredging in from 1 to 3 miles offshore, sending the suction dredging at the time, sending the sand up the tubes, spitting it on the beach and leveling it out, which explains why the shoreline is now so far out. But we kept the tradition like we do in Miami Beach. We like to cling on our glorious past. And the seawall is still here where it used to be back in the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and all the way up till now. Okay, so here we are at the top of Ocean Drive between 14th and 15th Street. Betsy Hotel across the street. Betsy Hotel stands out in our architectural district because it's not Art Deco, it's not Mediterranean style, and it's not MIMO. It is actually neoclassical revival. Now, some say it's Florida Georgian. Depends who you ask. Now, what's special about Betsy Hotel is that when it was complete in 1942, early 1942, so it happened that Miami Beach, especially South Beach area, was turned into military training grounds. Pearl Harbor got hit in December 1941. United States decided to get involved in the war, and instead of building new barracks, they calculated that it's cheaper to rent 85% of the rooms in South Beach. So this was all military training grounds. They were training on the beach, in parks, inside the buildings. And so it happened that the very, very first customers of a Betsy Hotel were these military trainees. They would normally live 2 to 4 people in one room. So let's go inside and explore. You may be wondering why sidewalks are red in Miami Beach. The only city in the United States where sidewalks are red or reddish, at least they're trying to be red. Because when Carl Fisher was building this as a resort for upper class in early 1920s, Hollywood was new and exciting. It was golden age of Hollywood. So they made it a city ordinance that sidewalks have to come out red so you feel like you're on the red carpet. And we kept tradition to this day. Okay, so Betsy Hotel has one of my favorite lobbies on Ocean Drive. It's still one of the few places remaining where you can get dressed up, come here and listen to jazz. Every night they have live music. Really cool lobby. Terrazzo floor, which you're gonna see a lot of. Terrazzo floor is actually, terrazzo stands for terrace in Italian, and it's extremely durable floor. It's only 1/4 of an inch thick. It's made out of chips of different materials, such as glass, granite, and then they pour cementitious binder. and epoxy or a mixture of both. And once it dries, you have the terrazzo floor. This is original floor from 1942. So most of the lobbies of Art Deco hotels have original floors, which means that it's super durable. Some people ask me, so if it's so good, why don't they make these floors today? The answer, one of the answers is because it's super expensive. Okay guys, so what's interesting about Betsy Hotel is that it's connected to another building on Collins Avenue. So what often happens is developers or owners buy multiple buildings, ideally next to each other, and connect them so they can run them as one bigger hotel. Because as you know, we are in an architectural district, which is historically preserved, meaning they cannot build on top or to the sides. So what they do is they buy two buildings and connect them. And this building is connected through this ball. So let's go and let me show you. Okay, so right now we are in between two buildings. The ball, which you can see in between, not a lot of people know unless they've been inside, is actually a sky bridge from one building to another. Here's another picture over here. So we're literally in the sky bridge right now. Okay, so let's go to the Collins Avenue building of the Betsy Hotel. They call it Dixon Wing because the architect who designed this building is L. Murray Dixon, and he's one of the top architects in Art Deco district. Actually, he's number 2 after Henry Hohauser. And the Betsy Hotel, the building we looked at earlier, that's designed by architect Henry Hohauser, who is number 1, and he's basically responsible for 1/3 of Art Deco buildings in our architectural district, including this one. So they just call it Dixon Wing and Hohauser Wing. So let me show you, they have a very neat library in here, which is available for hotel guests. The owners of the hotel are big fans of books and book authors, and that's why they put this library here, which is pretty cool. And by the way, if you are a published author, you may have a free room here for a few days. So now we are on the rooftop of the Betsy Hotel. As you can see, we have beautiful view towards Lummus Park, full of coconut palm trees, and the ocean behind, and obviously Ocean Drive, which goes from 15th Street over here all the way down to South Point Park. What I like about hotels in South Beach is that they have so much beautiful social space around. You could just go find yourself in one of these corners next to pillows and reading a book, having a coffee with a friend, and every social space, it's like a little different pocket with a different ambience. That's just amazing. That's exactly what you want when you're on vacation. You want novelty, you want experience new things. So we're now on Collins Avenue, facing another building which is also a part of Betsy Hotel. Now, talking about the name, it was originally called the Betsy Ross Hotel. Betsy Ross is actually a lady, the first lady who came up with American flags. She knitted the very first American flag. Hotel was named in her honor and later shortened to the Betsy Hotel. Over here we have statue of Barbara Capitman. She's the lady who started Miami Design Preservation League in 1976 and managed to save these buildings from demolition, because in the 70s, when things were really bad here, developers were looking to come in, knock down these old outdated little hotels and build new construction buildings. But Barbara Capitman, with a whole bunch of volunteers, stepped in and managed to get preservation in late 70s and early 80s. So it's thanks to her that Miami Beach is what it is today. You can see her statue is facing the corner here of 13 and Ocean Drive, because back in the day, Barbara Capitman with some other partners owned these 4 buildings. We have Cavalier, Cardozo on this side, and the Carlisle and Leslie over there. So let's talk a little bit about the features of Art Deco. So We have some streamlined modern here, which came in a little bit later in the late 30s, early 40s. But in the early 30s to mid 30s, the most popular style was square and boxy Art Deco. So early Art Deco, square and boxy. Later Art Deco, they become streamlined. Why? Because 1930s was age of a machine, and everything was becoming aerodynamic looking in industrial design, trains, cars, airplanes, and then later everything else, jewelry, furniture, toasters even. So architects, they are caught up with a trend and introduced streamlined modern style. And at the time, streamlined modern here was a global phenomenon. So now they're not vertically focused, now they are horizontally focused. Rounded corners, corner windows. There's a little bit less space for decorations down the middle, and they're trying to look like a boat. This is actually a boat. It's about to run us over and hit the ocean. You see, middle flagpole is taller than side flagpoles because we are trying to create a three-dimensional impression on a two-dimensional plane. Okay, so beautiful Art Deco lobby, original floor from 1939, and we have a fake fireplace. This is original fake fireplace from 1941. Now, back in the day, most of the developers were from up north, New York, New Jersey, Chicago sometimes. And it was very common back then for a hotel lobby to have a fireplace. So when they came down here, obviously we don't need more heat here, we're already in subtropical climate, but they still felt like they needed to have a decoration of a fireplace. And by the way, back then, that's before the TV, 1930s. So fireplace was also a focal point of the room. The room was sort of built around, furnished around fireplace. So most lobbies here do have fireplaces. It says Estefan Kitchen Express. Why? Because the building belongs to Emilio and Gloria Estefan. They bought it in 1992, but a little bit about Estefan's. After music fame faded in the 90s, they became huge real estate developers. And now they live right here in Miami Beach on Star Island, and they're worth a few $100 million. And this is one of their prized beauties, this building. It was refurbished 2 years ago for $15 million. So as you can see, is state-of-the-art inside and out, and they did a great job maintaining the original Art Deco aesthetic. So we have this beautiful courtyard. As you can see, in the late 30s, they started building hotels in U-shape to create these courtyards because there was a high demand for outdoor social spaces. People want to be outside. Now, a part of the architect's job was to integrate the gardening space. So as you can see, the gardening space is actually a part of the design because they wanted to create nice ambience. So you have plants and trees carefully selected by landscapers in order to create a partial shading, keep the concrete colder, and make it look nice and inviting. Also, that gives these rooms, who would normally not have a great view, that provides them with a little bit of a nicer view. This is like a little park of the hotel. So the tall and middle section is basically like a museum. We have a big mural on the wall, this beautiful ceiling, which actually allows the light in from the top. The fountain, which used to work all the way up until the lockdown. So when they reopened, they did not switch on the fountain. We have gold-plated door, gold-plated post boxes people can rent. And look at this open space here. This is incredible. They don't make things like that anymore, do they? And then you go to one of the wings of the building, and a small part of that wing is the actual post office. So the story behind it is the building was built in 1937, and it was In the 30s, during Depression, government launched a campaign in order to create more jobs for people because a lot of skilled workers did not have jobs. So what they did is, if they needed a building, they would design this sophisticated, big, elaborate building, much bigger and complex than it had to be, in order to give more jobs to more people and keep them at work longer. So that's a part, the Depression Moderne, as they call it. So, and that is the actual post office over here. That looks like more of a regular post office, right? But not that side. Marlin Hotel. Marlin Hotel, in streamlined modern style, looks like a ship. It has actually original color palette. By the way, the color palette, which we know Miami Beach for now, was originally not a part of the design. Originally, these buildings were either white, off-white, or beige. The color was introduced in around 1980 by Leonard Horowitz, who was Barbara Capitman's right-hand man. Leonard Horowitz was also a designer from New York, and he said to Barbara, "Since you managed to save these beauties, let's put makeup on them," and introduced the color palette, which was inspired by nature around us, different shades of tropical ocean, sunset, and sand. And it became a city ordinance eventually, once in the heat of preservation movement, that if you ran or owned Art Deco building, you had to go by that very color palette. And that's when Miami Beach became colorful, like we know it today. Eventually, you would, a couple of years later, see all of those colors in the famous TV show Miami Vice. So Chris Blackwell, Island Records founder, bought this building in the late 80s, and it became a part of Art Deco preservation movement. He refurbished it, repainted it, installed a very cool bar inside, and more importantly, a cool recording studio in the mezzanine floor. We're gonna see it in a second. Top charting music artists in the world stayed, played, and recorded their hit albums in the recording studio. First things first, original Art Deco door made out of aluminum. One of the great things about Art Deco in the 30s is they finally had big windows, which could allow a lot of light into the lobby and make a lobby a very pleasant place to be. So we have a restaurant over here, very well-known restaurant by the locals. But let me show you where recording studio used to be. Top charting music artists in the world stayed in this hotel and recorded some of the greatest hits of theirs in the recording studio, which used to be right here. Unfortunately, when Chris Blackwell, one of his companies, had financial problems, he sold all of his real estate in 2003. So new owners kind of removed the studio to make space for the restaurant. So the only really thing still reminding us about the glorious past of the music industry is this hallway over here, which is full of posters of artists who supposedly performed and recorded music here. So let's have a look. Gwen Stefani, as far as I know, she was actually here. Okay, so we have this is a poster of Bob Marley. Now this is a lie. This is not true. Bob Marley died in 1980, so there is no way he could have recorded music here or stayed here during Chris Blackwell era. But he is connected to Chris Blackwell in the fact that Chris Blackwell, when he started his record company called Islander Records, they signed Bob Marley before he was even famous. So that's the connection with Chris Blackwell. We have U2 here. As far as I know, they were here. They did record here. Early Snoop Dogg, huh? Could have been some more U2. So Bono was definitely here at some point. Okay, so if you spent a little bit of time in Miami Beach, you may notice that flamingo is used as a logo everywhere. Wherever you go, the nightclubs, even the phone repair shops, drinks, etc., use, and even Miami Beach itself uses flamingo as a logo. However, flamingo is not even native to South Florida. So how did flamingo become such a symbol of Miami Beach? Well, Carl Fisher. Carl Fisher, when he built one of his first grand hotels in Miami Beach, it was called Flamingo Hotel. He called his golf course Flamingo Golf Course. Now it's Flamingo Park. And he was so in love with flamingos that he even tried breeding them in his flamingo hotel. He had a little flamingo farm. He wanted to make them native to South Florida. However, it never worked, but it ended up as a symbol of Miami Beach. Okay, Hotel Victor. Hotel Victor was, the design of the building was inspired by another famous building, which is Bauhaus building in Germany, which was built in 1922. Bauhaus was art and design school. Interesting fact, when Nazis came into power, a few years later, Hitler hated modern architecture, and he chased away modernist architects or prosecuted them. Those who ran away from Germany went to Israel, moved to UK, United States, and then they executed their passion, and then modern architecture spread all over the world. What's unusual about it is, unlike most Art Deco buildings, you see it's not symmetrical. The taller middle section is actually pushed to a side, but still has all the tropical Art Deco features. We have eyebrows above windows casting a shade into the rooms, porthole windows, which is a big influence from nautical design. Back then, all the ships had rounded windows. So let's go inside and explore the interiors. It's got amazing lobby inside. We are on the mezzanine floor of this lobby, beautiful lobby. So let's start with the floor. The floor, which is terrazzo floor, original floor from 1937. That's when the hotel was built. It has 3 circles connected to each other, which is a symbol of a train and a celebration of Henry Flagler extending the railway all the way down to Miami in 1896, because that's when Miami was established. Back then, you had to build a railway for a big group of people to move. Now, moving on, we have these backlit aluminum panels, which were very popular back in the 30s and 40s. This is the only lobby which still has these, because as time went on, hotel owners and developers did not want to deal with the maintenance. They went out of fashion, so they filled them in and painted over them. Okay, so guys, this used to be front desk. Now it's all the way over there, but back then this was a front desk, and you can see a lot of glass block over here. Glass block was extremely popular during Art Deco era, used for interior and exterior. Glass block is actually hollow inside, so it doesn't support the structure, it only supports itself, and it's used for decoration. It looks beautiful with light behind it, or neon light behind it. It was also believed that if you sit here and in a hot and humid lobby, most of lobbies back then did not have AC, and if you're looking at this glass block, which looks like ice cubes, it's gonna make you feel a little bit colder. Do you know what this circle means? Back in the day, before they extended the original building over here, this used to be a parking lot, and this is a tire suggesting that that's where you park your car. Okay, Breakwater Hotel. As a matter of fact, Breakwater Hotel belongs to the same people who also own Edison Building, Versace Mansion, and Victor Hotel. So again, same owners own multiple buildings next to each other. Let's talk about Breakwater specifically. So this is designed to look like a boat. A tall, striking double vertical nameplate suggesting Mayan influence. This is bow of a ship. It's about to run us over and hit the ocean. Railings on the roof line are like railings on a cruise ship. It has a lot of vertical and horizontal emphasis in racing lines, eyebrows, floating forms. So Art Deco here is famous for three-dimensional geometrical shapes floating out of a building, and we have a lot of that. The architect, this was built in 1941, so it's later Art Deco. A clear giveaway is the ground floor is pushed way back. It has the biggest recessed ground floor of the whole Ocean Drive, in my opinion. Now, this building is also famous for the fact that in 1985, Calvin Klein did a photo shoot right here on this roof. The cameraman is facing this way, and that photo shoot was used for their cologne perfume called Obsession, which is still popular to this day. And in that advert, he used naked models, which was quite controversial at the time. So the advert ran in newspapers and magazines for several years. Everybody, millions of people had seen it, and everybody wondered where this was. The answer was Ocean Drive, Miami Beach. And that's when Miami Beach started taking over as a fashion capital of United States. And in the 90s, fashion industry was here. Let's go inside and check out this cool lobby. Beautiful Art Deco lobby, your terrazzo floor as usual, an elevator, original elevator from 1941. Look at how it used to open as a regular door, then you would open a slat and you would walk in. So this is one of those three-story buildings which did have elevator. Now, look at the chandelier. This is an air filter for a truck. It was designed like a part of the engine, an air filter. Now, in the background, we have a stage, and on Fridays and Saturdays nights, they do live shows, and it's really vibrant here. So check out the Breakwater Hotel, Havana 1957 restaurant. Okay, so here we are, Mango's Tropical Cafe, which is now, if you want to go to dancing on Ocean Drive, this is where you go. But this MIMO style building hasn't always been like this. Back in the 80s, it was a retirement home, early 80s. And the owner of the building actually had a contract with residents who were elders that they will have home until the end of their life. But so it happened that in the late 80s, Miami Beach started coming back to life. So he wanted to install a bar, but he couldn't because he still kind of had, in some of the rooms, he still had elders living. He was waiting for them to die so he can start a different business, but he opened the bar anyway. So there was elders living on the second floor in some of the rooms, and the bar opened downstairs. We are in Blackstone Apartments lobby. It hasn't always been apartment building. It was built by a Jewish family in 1929 as a hotel, and it was one of the first hotels which did not discriminate against Jewish clientele. Mind you, back then most hotels did. There used to be signs saying whites only, Gentiles only, and that discrimination lasted for about 20 to 30 years, up until 1950s. Black people had it worse. This was a sundown town, which means that it was racially segregated. So it was a Blackstone hotel, and this is what it looked like. And back then, this was the tallest building in Miami Beach, 13 floors, so 12 plus penthouse. Mind you, back then, penthouse was mostly what they called sunroof. But it was an extension of penthouse was added later. So now we have a full penthouse floor, the 13th floor. Also, you see the trees right here in this front yard. As a matter of fact, I do believe that this tree you see here is what you see today, but now it goes all the way up to 9th floor. So some things remain. All right, so because it was a hotel back then, first of all, look at the windows here in the lobby. This is Mediterranean style building, old Spanish style, which was popular before Art Deco became mainstream style Miami Beach. And Spanish style, Mediterranean style lobbies are known for their open air spaces. And this was open air lobby. As you can see, this part over here, including window here and at the top over there, that was filled in at some point later. So this would be open air situation, which was pretty cool. You would come over here, and every morning they would serve breakfast in this area right here. So this was a breakfast area, which explains why it's quite vast. Now, obviously, it's used for other things. It's an apartment building, so we have our laundry facilities, post boxes, a little bit of seating, but very minimal. So the area, it got a little bit run down as years went on. After it was a hotel, it was turned into old people's care home. And then It operated as such, and then decades later, I believe about 20 years ago, it was turned back into apartments. It was one of the first buildings of affordable housing in Miami Beach. On northeast corner of Collins Avenue, hotels have corner entrances. Multiple hotels on northeast corner. There's a reason for that, because back in the day, if you were coming here in the 30s or 40s, you would come by train from New York, you would get on a trolley in Miami downtown, and the trolley would take you here to South Beach. And back then, the trolley would stop on the northeast corner of Collins Avenue. So hotels wanted to grab these new customers as quickly as they could, so they built corner entrances to make it more inviting for them. Okay, Colony Hotel, right in the middle of Ocean Drive. It's got that upside down T signage, which resembles a movie theater. Mind you, this was built as a middle-class resort in the 30s during Depression. This is 1935 building, one of the earlier Art Deco buildings. And at the time, life was grim in most of the country, but people's optimism manifested in these playful, flamboyant buildings. They were trying to create a fantasy world which stimulates escapist nostalgia. CVS over here, this was one of the Scarface filming locations. Actually, the scene where he tries to make a first drug deal with Colombians took place right here, top left. You see that bubble window at the top left? That was the bathroom where the chainsaw scene took place. So they would park the car over here, and two of them would go up these stairs to that apartment. But what happened was, as time went on and CVS took over, CVS gutted the building. So the second and third floor on this side of the building is basically one open space. So that apartment does not exist anymore. And CVS changed as much as they could. Okay guys, so this is 5th Street, South Beach. 5th Street splits Ocean Drive into Party Mile over there, which we just covered, and residential Ocean Drive on the southern side. So also 5th Street splits South Beach into south of 5th or Sophie, just like in New York you have Soho, south of Houston, and the regular South Beach. So in Sophie, to live in Sophie is much more expensive, very residential, less touristy, much safer, but all the madness is just across the street if you still want it right here on this side, Entertainment District. Brown's Hotel, the oldest hotel in Miami Beach, built in 1915, as old as Miami Beach itself. One of the few wooden buildings which survived 1926, the Great Miami Hurricane. They kept the exterior in its original condition. Still a hotel upstairs. Downstairs is Prime 112 Steak Restaurant. I believe it was number 12 in one of the recent years. Number 12 highest grossing restaurant in the United States. So for a restaurant of this size, that's quite impressive. As a few weeks ago, I was hosting my regular bike tour. We stopped over here and I saw the Porsche pull up. And the guy from the Porsche handed the keys to valet, stepped outside, put his apron on, and went inside to work. He's a waiter, he's a server in there. So they're doing really well here. We're at the back side of Nikki Beach, the famous South Beach bar. So let's go and check it out. Okay, so this is famous Nikki Beach. It's got an interesting backstory. Before it was Nikki Beach, up until 1997, this was called Penrod's because it was opened by McDonald's franchisee Jack Penrod. This was his passion project, something he actually liked, unlike McDonald's. So he opened this beach bar with unique ambience, cabanas. Now, he had a daughter. Her name was Nicola. She used to party here with her boyfriend. One night they had an argument. She ran off into the parking lot, drove off, and died in a car crash. So to celebrate her life, the name was changed to Nikki on the Beach. Later it was shortened to Nikki Beach. So Nikki stands for Nicola. You can take the table or cabana. If you are taking a cabana, there's a minimum amount of dollars you have to spend, and you're chilling here, what feels like the beach. The ocean is right here, and now there are around 15 Nikki Beach resorts all over the world. But this was the very, very first one. And this is the only one which does not have a swimming pool. So there is one in Ibiza, in Dubai, Saint-Tropez, and many, many other famous resort cities in the world. Joe's Stone Crab, #1, #2 highest grossing restaurant in the United States, is right here in the heart of Miami Beach, 11 Washington Avenue. So interesting side story. It started out, it's actually older than Miami Beach itself. It was first started by Joseph Wise from New York in 1913. And it was the first restaurant to operate in Miami Beach. For several years, it did not have any competition. Joseph Wise's house was right here on this very corner. Back then it was a wooden building. And he started selling sandwiches from the window, and as time went on, was expanding. Every generation would make it better, and now it takes up almost the whole block. We also have Joe's Stone Crab takeaway section. So if you don't want the whole dining experience, you can still go to the takeaway section and experience food from the same kitchen. Stone crab is the shellfish from South Florida. They catch stone crab, they remove one claw, and they throw the crab back in the ocean, because that way they don't kill the crab. The crab grows back the missing claw. If you take away both claws, the crab will die. So fishermen, having realized that, want to keep them alive. Also, half a year is a fishing season, half a year is not a fishing season. That's basically to allow the crabs to grow back so they can catch them again and reuse them again next year. So they are sustainable. 5th and Washington. Guys, this used to be 5th Street Gym where Cassius Clay, aka Muhammad Ali, trained from 1962 till the end of his career in 1981. While he was here in 1962, 63, and 64, Miami Beach was still racially segregated, and black boxers would have to come in here early enough so in order to finish their training before 6 p.m. because black folks would have to leave by 6 p.m., go across the bridge to Overtown. Segregation was abolished in 1964. What also happened in 1964, Cassius Clay became a champion right here in Miami Beach Convention Center. And the movie One Night in Miami is centered around that night. While he was getting ready for the fight, Beatles came to town. This was their first tour in the United States. First they came to New York, then Washington, D.C. And when they came here, they did a photo shoot with Cassius Clay getting ready for the fight. There's a famous picture of them together in 5th Street Gym. Back then it used to be a 2-story building, and 5th Street Gym was the 2nd floor. It was run by famous boxing coach Angelo Dundee. When he died in the 90s, a fake gym opened a few blocks away here on 5th Street called also 5th Street Gym, basically claiming their brand, which ended up in a lawsuit. However, the fake 5th Street Gym is still here. The oldest bar in Miami-Dade County opened in 1926. This was a speakeasy. Back in the day, during Prohibition, speakeasies were basically illegal bars. It's almost 100 years old. Back then, Miami Beach, although alcohol was technically illegal, Miami Beach was one of the leakiest cities in the United States. We had a lot of booze being brought in from Cuba, which back then was not communist, from Bahamas. The nearest territory of Bahamas, or foreign territory, is Bahamas, is Bimini, Bahamas. It's only 52 miles east. So Florida has a perfect geographical location for trafficking booze, and decades later, cocaine. But during the Prohibition, most of the booze was coming from Bahamas, and one of these famous rum runners, these sea captains bringing in booze, was the real McCoy. You may have heard the expression, the real McCoy, when something is high quality. Well, this is the real McCoy. He was a Floridian bringing in booze from Bahamas. He was known as an honest lawbreaker. He never paid bribes to law enforcement, politicians, or organized crime. And most importantly, he never watered down his whiskey. His whiskey, called the Real McCoy, was of the highest quality, and that's where the expression comes from. And by the way, you can still buy the Real McCoy whiskey if you go to specialized alcohol stores. Just Google it and you'll find it. Club Deuce Bar, it's real seedy place, reminds me of an old British pub. Smoking is allowed inside. Okay, so not only smoking is allowed, plenty of ashtrays over here, but it's also cash only. You see the neon over here? So the neon lights were actually put in by Miami Vice production crew because Miami Vice did film quite a few scenes in here. There's actually a scene with Don John sitting right here in this corner in, I believe, the 5th season of Miami Vice in 1989. Quite a special place. It's got an incredible ambience. It's almost like one of those few places which are disappearing, where you can meet a pirate with a grumpy voice and a missing eye. Nowhere has the rediscovery of American architectural heritage has been more dramatic or produced more success than here in Miami Beach. Guys, thank you for watching. In this video, you only saw a short version of my full tour. When you come to Miami Beach, come meet me, book one of my tours. I have different configurations. It will change your appreciation of this city, and it will change the way you view the city if you understand the story behind it. Thank you, and I'll see you in Miami Beach.